Oh my gosh, guys. America just sent invasion warships into the Caribbean within striking range of Venezuela. And they want you to believe it's about cartels. All right, let's break this down. No warm up, no fluff, straight to the truth. Let's dive in. All right, guys, welcome back to the baseline. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in. All right, here's what's happening. America just sent warships into the Caribbean right off Venezuela's doorstep. And what they want you to believe is that it's about drug cartels. Now, let's all think about that for a second. Amphibious assault ships, the kind of vessels designed to storm beaches, now floating just outside of Latin America. And Washington's telling us it's about protecting America's children from the inflow of cocaine or whatever other drug. Now, I don't know about you, but when I hear that, my first reaction is, really? Marines in the Caribbean because we care about the kids? Because that's like sending a SWAT team to stop a kid from stealing Halloween candy. It just doesn't add up. Because here's the truth nobody in mainstream media really wants to spell out. This isn't about cartels. It's about control. It's about sovereignty. And yes, it's about the oil. So let's take a step back and a breath. Because if you've lived in the United States, you've been hearing about the so-called war on drugs for over 50 years now. 5 decades of promises, 5 decades of prisons filled, 5 decades of billions spent. And what's the result? The United States is still the largest consumer of drugs in the world. Say that out loud. The biggest market is not Colombia. It isn't Venezuela. It's right here in all 50 states. So if the problem is internal, why are we parking battleships outside of Venezuela? Because this has nothing to do with protecting families. It has everything to do with protecting power. And Venezuela, whether you love its politics or not, has become one of the clearest obstacles to U.S. designs in that particular region. Why? Oil! More than 303 billion barrels of proven reserves under Venezuelan soil, the largest stash of oil on the planet. And in 1998, Venezuela made a choice. They said this wealth isn't going north. Not anymore. It's staying here. It's funding schools, health clinics, food programs. It's building the nation, not padding the portfolios of billionaires in Houston and Washington. Now, that moment in 1998 was the line in the sand. And before then, Venezuela was basically a neo-colony. Its oil profits flowing north while its own people remained poor. And then after that, it was a sovereign country with a project to keep wealth at home. And since that decision, Washington has been at a war with Venezuela. Sometimes in the shadows, sometimes in broad daylight. Coup attempts, check. Sanctions, check. Assassination plots, check. Smear campaigns, narco dictator labels, bounties on Moderna's head, check, 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 and check. And now, United States Marines parked offshore under the polite title of law enforcement. Now, I don't know about you, but when I hear law enforcement, I think of traffic tickets, maybe a bad encounter with a cop, not an amphibious warfare flotilla. That's not law enforcement. That's occupation waiting for a green light. And the funniest part, the DEA's own national threat assessments for 2024 and 2025, you know, the official reports don't even mention Venezuela, not once. So they don't mention this so-called cartel of sons that cable news keeps shouting about. The reports say the main source of drug inflows is Mexico. And even Mexico's cartels depend on partnerships here in the United States. Partners in banking and logistics, even sometimes in government agencies, like maybe the CIA, I don't know. But ask yourself this: if the DEA's own data doesn't point to Venezuela, then why the sudden deployment to the Caribbean? Well, it seems somewhat simple. Washington isn't scared of cocaine. Washington is scared of Venezuela's independence. Because here's the pattern. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Whenever a country dares to keep its resources at home, Iran, Venezuela, whenever a nation declares it won't be a gas station for the American empire, suddenly that country becomes a threat to democracy. Suddenly their leader is a dictator. Suddenly Marines are warming up on their borders. Now, we've seen this movie. We've seen it in Libya. We've seen it in Iraq. We've seen it in Syria. We've seen it in Iran to some extent. Always the same script, different actors. And now Venezuela is on the stage. And what's wild is that Venezuelans, they know it. Just this past month, thousands signed up for militias, preparing to defend their homeland if an invasion comes. Now think about that. Ordinary people across the political spectrum saying, hey, we may disagree on policies, but we agree on one thing. This country won't be handed over to a foreign entity. That's dignity, that's sovereignty. That's exactly what Washington apparently cannot stand. Because here's the dirty secret. It's not Venezuela's weakness that terrifies the United States. It's their strength. And the fact that despite sanctions that have choked their economy, despite being cut off from international markets, despite losing billions in oil sales, Venezuela has not surrendered. They've diversified, they've endured, and they've kept speaking out against empire and imperialism. So whether it's Palestine, Haiti, or regional sovereignty in Latin America, let me tell you, when a smaller nation stands up and refuses to bow, it sends a dangerous signal to others. Dangerous not for the people, but for the empire, because it says if Venezuela can resist, why can't we? And that becomes global contagion. And that's what Washington fears. It's not drugs. It's not Maduro. It's not socialism or independence. And let's not forget the role of sanctions here. They aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They kill. They kill people, economies, countries. The Center for Economic and Policy Research found that sanctions on Venezuela cost tens of thousands of deaths. Hospitals without supplies, children without medicine. And that's not diplomacy, guys. That's war by another means. And yet, the narrative keeps shifting. At first, it was about democracy. Then it was about human rights. Now it's about drugs. And tomorrow, it'll be about something else. But the point isn't the excuse. The point is the actual objective. Strip Venezuela of its independence, pry open its oil fields, and remind the hemisphere who's boss. But here's the twist. Latin America isn't buying it. Mexico's president dismissed the United States' claims outright. Colombia's president, yes, Colombia, one of America's closest allies, said the narco state label has no legitimacy. China has come out strong for Venezuela. And in the Caribbean, countries like Guyana and Trinidad have gone the other way, offering themselves as a staging ground for the United States. Which, if you think about it, is tragic. Neighbors siding with an empire for crumbs, even if it risks setting the whole region on fire. But let's be crystal clear. This isn't about Venezuela. It's about the precedent. If Washington can dress up an invasion as a drug bust and sell it to the public, then no country in the hemisphere is going to be safe. And I'll say this because history demands that we say it. Concessions don't make you safer. Look at Iraq. Look at Libya. Every time a leader thought, if we just compromise, maybe Washington will ease up on us. And the exact opposite ends up happening. And the lesson Venezuelans have learned painfully but clearly is that dignity, not submission, is the only shield. So let's pivot back to you guys. Why does this matter in your life? Why should you care about Marines in the Caribbean? Because every dollar spent on these endless interventions, these endless wars, is a dollar not spent fixing your roads, your hospitals, your healthcare. I mean, we could have universal healthcare for the world based on the amount of money we spend on wars. But every false narrative about protecting kids from drugs is a cover for policies that are destroying your community here at home. And every time Washington rigs the game abroad, it sets the stage for rigging it here. Power protects power, guys. And when it can't win fair, it rigs the game. And that's the anchor here. That's the through line. Because whether it's sanctions, coups, or warships in the Caribbean, the logic is the same. Empire doesn't tolerate independence. And that's why Venezuela matters. Not because of Maduro, not because of ideology, but because of what their defiance represents. A country saying, we are not your colony, and people willing to back it up with their blood and with their lives. So the next time you hear about cartels and narco states, remember this. The DEA's own reports don't back up this claim. The narrative is the theater. The reality is oil. The reality is sovereignty. And here's the truth most people don't want to see until it's too late. They'll swallow the headlines. They'll nod along with the TV anchors. They'll believe Marines in the Caribbean are there to protect. But not you, not us. We got to see the storm before it breaks. Connect the dots, the other misses, and that makes all of us stronger. You, me, all of us. Because the world is shifting. Challenges are real. But the fact that we're all watching this, that you're watching this, the fact that you're paying attention means that you're already ahead of 90% of people. You're becoming the best version of yourself by being informed. Be prepared, be unshaken. Stick with me, because if you think Venezuela is the final chapter, man, you haven't seen what's happening next. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching The Baseline. I really appreciate you. Let me know if you think I got this all right or all wrong. Put the comment in the section below. I read them all. I answer them all. And thank you again for watching. We'll catch you on the next episode of The Baseline. All right. Cheers, everybody.